still watching Nigeria Decides, and we are live from our studios right here in Lagos, monitoring the governorship and the House of Assembly elections from all over the country.
Don't forget the supplementary ones as well.
Yes, of course, and the supplementary elections going on side by side. Joining us now is a domestic observer, Arigbabu Sulaiman. He is the Southwest Coordinator for the Transition Monitoring Group, and we still have Jide Johnson here in the studio. Gentlemen, it's good to have you. So we'll start with you, Mr. Sulaiman. As an observer, from the eyes of an observer, did you also observe the presidential elections?
Yes.
So let's juxtapose, let's put them side by side and find out exactly what you think, if there be any comparisons or there be any disparities.
Would you be referring to the conduct or the turnout? Or?
The turnout, the conduct, INEC's level of preparedness, and of course timing.
Yeah, of course there's been an improvement in INEC's preparedness. In quite many places, from the reports I have and from several places that I went across the state today, INEC people were there early, and in some other places, latest by 9, polling has started. Yes, we have a few places that I got reports from where the voting did not start early, but there are quite few. Compared to the presidential election, INEC deployed much earlier. So there is an improvement in that. There is also an improvement in the handling of the smart card reader by the ad hoc staff. So apparently there's been some further training because during the presidential and National Assembly elections, we observed that most of the issues with smart card readers was because those handling it were not on top of the game for that day. The downside of this election compared to that one, and it's not as if that one was fantastic in terms of voter turnout, but I think this is another low in our polity in terms of voter turnout on a major election day.
Have we had any bad? Have we had it this bad before? Looking at 2007 to 2019.
Well, of course, the statistics will vary because yes, this is Lagos, and I've only seen as many places as I've been and gotten a few reports. The statistics will come in perhaps tomorrow or thereabout. We can then compare properly. But from the little we have seen on the field, this is another low.
Lagos State recorded close to about, is it not 18%?
Yes, just a little over 18, just a little close to 19% at the presidential election. And I do not think that the voter turnout this time will match that number. And that was abysmal anyway. So that's why I'm saying that this could be an all-time low. But then we need to check the statistics first and compare before we can say it's the worst. But really, this is not good.
Now, when we're having the earlier conversation before we took the short break, Jide made mention of the fact that real voting starts after the votes have been cast, when we are looking at collation of results now. Do you anticipate that we would have the results being pasted at the different centers, reflecting the true voter turnout?
You see, it's important for us.
It refers to some level of magic and manipulation.
Yes, because a lot of us are still tied to what used to be. And the truth is that there's been an improvement, gradual, steady improvement in our process, especially at the end of INEC in the last 8 years. And we cannot shy away from that. We're having other challenges, other things are coming up, but what we realize is that it's no longer easy for politicians to steal votes at the polling unit. It's equally no longer easy for them to steal votes at either ward or local government. That's why in the last presidential election here in Lagos, at BRL, quite many votes were cancelled even from local government. You know, in Surulere local government, over 20,000 votes were cancelled by INEC because of either overvoting or some other things. So it's really difficult because as those figures are being entered at the polling unit, INEC is seeing it as a situation. citizens are saying it. Not only that, party agents in most places are also getting the same thing.
Would it be pressing on INEC to release the details of the card readers so that we can tally those figures?
It's the courts that can ask for such. But then you cannot just call for all of it for the country. If you have issues with any particular place, that's one thing that INEC has done in this election. They say if you want to vote in a particular place and the thing is not, you have issues with it recognizing you, there is what they call the tender ballot. So that you are not just going to write your name and go. No, if you come and your name is not on the voters list for that place, you can't even vote. If you now find your name there, then the next thing is for the card reader to authenticate that this is a genuine card.
I want to ask him a question. You see, the presidential election is a single constituency election. Single constituency that states that all of the 774 local government in Nigeria, state including Federal Capital Territory, must votes from all of these areas must be counted before you declare the actual winner of the election. Now, when you now say that INEC, you can only go to court to compel or demand from INEC before they declare the card reader for details. I think it behooves on us moving forward that after the election, INEC ought to give an account. That's accountability. If you don't take this account of what transpired in the election, the number of voters that were accredited,
INEC has given that.
I'm going to give those accounts based on what you said. That's why I'm asking this question. Give an account of that. We deserve the right to know.
That's a public information already. Go to INEC website. When INEC was declaring the presidential result, he gave all these vital statistics.
No, but on the day of election, like today now, across the different polling units which you visited, aren't we supposed to have the exact details that each card reader captured, and then we compute those information?
Who should have those details?
INEC.
INEC has it in their. Where should
they already have the information as of now? They should make it public then.
It's public.
Why shouldn't I know it in my polling unit?
How would you? This is
don't say how would I. I mean, Nigeria, I'm a stakeholder. Don't tell me how would I.
This is going to be recipe for chaos.
No, it's not recipe for chaos.
Let's say what are your rights as a citizen? Your right as a citizen is that
the right to information.
When you have your PVC and you get to the polling unit, there are certain steps that ought to be taken in your presence. Okay, when they come, they check that the ballot box is empty. They check all the necessary, the ballot papers, the result sheet, everything is plain. You have a right to know the number. That's why there is a particular form that ought to be pasted, which says the number of registered persons here and all of that. So there are those issues. Now, when voting is done and they start to sort and collate, there and then they will announce the number of people who came out to vote.
Accredited. The number of accredited voters.
This because the system we are doing now is accredited.
Simultaneous.
It's simultaneous. It's not like in the past where you come out, you accredit, 11 o'clock, you come back. No. So all those details are there for you at your polling unit. You can get that. So why I say to be recipe for chaos is if you now say INEC should go extra. Already those information are there. The result sheet should state the number of accredited, the number of those who voted, the results as per parties, the number of ballots that was invalidated. All of that will be there. And then when INEC did announce the result of the presidency, for instance, in Abuja, these same details for the country, they gave it up. If you had gone to any of the senatorial district reporting centers, collation centers, the senatorial district returning officer also announced all of this for that senatorial district. Today, as we are voting, if you go to a local government collation center, the returning officer for that local government will give these same details you're asking for. Number of people who voted in this local government, number of votes that were valid, number of votes that are invalid,
then that means that
and how the party,
and then in providing that information, all the figures must correspond.
Exactly.
But in a situation,
that's why I now said, Mr. Johnson. That's why I now said, if the figures don't then correspond, you can then call for a particular, and that's why I was explaining that INEC has even improved by saying that it's a tender ballot. If somebody comes and maybe the candidate didn't recognize their figure or something and they want to vote, they bring out the tender ballot where their face is already and they will thumbprint.
So what you're saying
if you go to court, you can ask for that.
If we want to have a situation where we would want to tally exactly fact for fact from the card reader details, we should just wait until we can make requests from the different polling units or ward levels? Is that what you are?
What are you proposing? That the card reader should be given to anybody who asks?
What the argument is simple as this. You know, as much as I'm entitled to know my balance, accounting balance for the bank, putting my ATM in the ATM machine and then I check for my balance. So also I should be able to know
exactly
the number of people that voted and they didn't vote. You see, ultimately, listen, Sulaiman, ultimately the power resides with the people. INEC does not work for the government. INEC works for the people. And in democracy, that power is derived from the ballot box. It's from my thumbprint or any of the fingers that I use. So as a Nigerian, I am entitled to know. If I don't need to approach a question.
Did you vote today?
Yes, of course.
You were at a polling unit.
Yes, of course.
In that polling unit where you voted, you have a right to all this information you're asking for.
How many Nigerians?
They are made available.
Hold on, Mr. Sulaiman. Can you just walk up to your electoral officer or the polling officer and say, I want access to this and that and that?
You are disrupting the process. What you do is wait. When you wait till the end of the process in that your polling unit, every single of this detail you're asking for, number of people accredited, how the parties score, number of valid votes, number of invalid votes, the whole total must be given in that spot before you leave.
Sulaiman, you know what we are going to do? These are the issues we take to the National Assembly to legislate. It should be declared by INEC. I think the principle of governance is transparency. This should be part and parcel of the electoral process.
Our electoral process will not move forward if we are dragging it back. You're asking for something that is already there, that is practiced. You will only not know what I'm saying if you don't go to a polling unit. This results in every polling unit. All these figures. Okay, if there's any particular figure you want to ask for that is not readily given, then I will accept that, oh, this is not readily given. But in any polling unit, after the vote, when it's counted, the coalition officer there will tell you the number of accredited voters. You must write it as a party agent and as an observer. Transition Monitoring Group, we deployed 4,000 observers across the country. And so did each of our observers, our reporting sheet has all of this. In your polling unit, you must say how many people, in fact, you will first tell us how many people are registered to vote in that place.
Do you have your,
how many people
your
came
guys
out
also stationed in River State? Because we spoke earlier to, I think it was Sam, and he said, well, in certain situations where the card readers did not work and they were still waiting on technicians to come fix the situation, they had to resort to Plan
B.
Which is?
The manual process of taking information.
So I don't know what INEC is going to decide on that, because Rivers is a peculiar
I'm sorry to butt in. INEC had said that they were not.
Exactly.
So they said anywhere that the card readers were not used, they would cancel. In fact, they said they must use card readers. But we also know that these card readers are not necessarily human beings. They're like computers, and they could have problems. They might need to be reset or reformatted, and we know that they have technicians. But in the case where none of these works, what do you do? Because you have electors in front of you who left their homes and came and said, I want to vote.
No doubt our system is not perfect, but what INEC has tried to do, and I'm not holding brief for INEC in any case, what INEC has tried to do is to ensure that everybody's franchise is respected. So if there are areas where some of these things happen and it's not due to the fault of people in that area, that's why you are seeing some places they're either cancelling or postponing or doing makeup. So if their case is genuine, I can bet you that in some places what INEC has done, even here in Lagos, is that there are places that, a couple of places that electoral officers came after 2 p.m. If you remember 2 weeks ago, INEC had to extend. So in some places they voted till 11 p.m.
INEC has said that this time around there's no extension of time because every polling unit started right on time.
But not all.
And even the postponement because of that in Kogi State where they sent the wrong election materials to the wrong area. So how then does INEC come out to say we would have uniform timing, and now we are seeing discrepancies in?
Because we are I believe that there is no electoral process that has the kind of logistics that INEC takes care of in the world.
How do you mean?
Okay, so what I mean is that when you take democracies that are bigger than us, you take India, you take United States. These are not, INEC is overly centralized, especially in its operations, and it's bound to fail. You go to the United States, states manage the elections, even during the general elections.
Are there states resident electoral commissioner?
There are state resident electoral commissioners.
all over the state.
In Nigeria?
But INEC's operation, I tell you, up to the ink pad comes from Abuja. Up to this observer jacket comes from Abuja. INEC is over. These are part of the post-election conversations we need to have.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Undo some of these.
It's not about unbundling. It's about operations
to the state level.
It's about operations, not unbundling.
When you say that Barrister Festus Okoye was saying, no, we will not do this because don't forget that the same INEC, when political parties asked the chairman, are we allowed to continue our campaign after the postponement? He said no. But eventually had to reverse himself. So equally, if places that have been disenfranchised make their tender a solid case, INEC would have to, because they have no right to disenfranchise people.
When INEC
might have to reverse itself.
When INEC is planning
now you
for
have
these,
a situation.
Hold on. When INEC is planning for these elections, whether it be governorship or why are these things not taken into consideration? There's something that is called feasibility studies. You look at the pros and the cons. You are 10 steps ahead, you know, preempting what would happen. How come these things are not taken into consideration? And again, for talking about the state levels, we have local electoral commissions, you know.
Electoral officers at the local government.
At the local level.
Independent electoral
because you were making reference to what happens in other climes. So why are these people not allowed to, if that would ease up the tension at the center?
There are two different things there. One, like I said again, I'm also asking these questions that you're asking as a Nigerian. How come we're having these logistic problems? Because they are logistic nightmares and it's messing us all up. Agreed. But what I was saying about, I'm not in any way saying that state independent electoral commissions, as they are currently constituted in our country, should be allowed to handle the election. It will be madness, total madhouse. These people will return 100% for local government. But we are saying that we will only have developed and advanced if we get to a stage that
what recommendations will you be pushing out there and looking for that when the 9th Assembly is constituted would have effect?
Oh, definitely. We need fast reforms in some of the processes. Some of the processes that INEC already has. All the law needs to do is just enable INEC to be free to make certain decisions. But more importantly, how do we progress in our election? Can we continue to have this behemoth, INEC, sending everything to states? INEC has, here in Yaba there, you have INEC head office for Lagos. So in that place, there are certain operations that are needing concern Abuja that could be taken care of. And the same we observers suffer the same thing. Some observer kits and ID cards were taken, Ekiti State taken to Sokoto State. We also suffered that nightmare. Many observers were not registered. And some had multiple registration, not out of their own doing. So, but if you allow states to manage some of these things, may not be as difficult as we are seeing. So there are many things that need to change. And we need to move more progressively towards digitalizing our processes, especially in terms of how soon can we be there in terms of electronic voting. I think we are still many years away from that, but we need to rush in that direction.
Mr. Sulaiman, quickly, are you going to write a report at the end of the elections and make recommendations in there to INEC to see also that, you know, they pick some things out of those suggestions and work with it for 2023?
Definitely, we always do that. Transition monitoring group, we gave our initial report after the preliminary report after the presidential election. So we're waiting for the end of this process to give a comprehensive report about the entire process itself. And we have seen a lot of lapses, we have seen where improve. And don't forget, the progress that we are saying INEC has made over the years has been because they have listened a lot to civil society organizations, to international observers, and to the various commissions, the West Commission, the Kenny Namani Commission, and the rest of it. So we need
the West Commission report has not been fully implemented.
Well, it's not been fully implemented a lot. I can tell you. I can tell you authoritatively that a lot has been taken from the OIS report.
Okay.
A lot needs to be done, but a lot has been taken. We have made some progress.
Now, Atiku Abubakar has lamented the low turnout of voters. Saraki as well as expressed disappointment. And Bola Tinubu upset about the violence reports and a whole lot more. You weren't pleased with the turnout that you saw so far. So now in gearing up for other elections that will hold later within this year and 2023, what do you expect INEC to be doing differently? Because some have said that, well, when you're doing an assessment of the Ateru Jega leadership and Mahmoud Yakubu, we might be a little too unfair since this is just the first term. But what leadership changes and strategic means do you think Mahmoud Yakubu should be adopting this time around to ensure that we see an improvement?
The first thing that needs to happen immediately after the election is that we need to audit this process. What happened? What went wrong? Was it that people slept on their duty, or were we sabotaged? We need answers. And Yakubu Mahmoud needs to lead that. It's not yet a question on his leadership until we have facts of where things go wrong. That is first thing that needs to happen. Second thing that needs to happen is that INEC needs to revisit this whole process of its continual voter registration. There are many Nigerians who made genuine efforts but couldn't get their PVCs. We need to look at how can we make that easier. One of the things that needs to happen is that people should be able to vote outside of where they have registered, at least within their states. Some of the
Mr. Sulaiman, really, are we not just punching beyond our weight? If we have not been able to successfully give people their PVCs, we're talking about people voting outside. I mean,
yeah, so
are we
they
not
are
being
saying what
overly,
should happen between now
optimistic
and 2023 is 4 years, my sister. 4 years. As a nation, we should be able to do something.
But INEC had 4 years to prepare for this election, and this is what we get.
There are improvements in certain areas.
What's the assurance that we're going to have?
You see, we are a society that tends to procrastinate and we push responsibility forward.
Once this election cycle is over, we are preparing for the next.
We talk about Vision 2020, Vision 2000 and the rest of it. Look, we saw the red light with Anambra's election. We saw the red light with Edo's election. We saw the red light with Ondo's election. We saw the red light with Oshun's election. Now we are seeing it with general election. And we said, oh, by the time we get to general election, we'll get it right. As we are telling you now, there are some states in which you don't know the candidate running for the election. There are loads of litigation going on in the courts. And you begin to ask yourself the question. There's a provision for INEC to monitor the primaries. To monitor the primaries of the parties. You see, we tend to limit the role of INEC to conducting elections alone. That's why people have argued that INEC as constituted is too big. But in Nigeria, we believe in big manism to solve our problem. Now, a lot of powers has been arrogated to the chairman of INEC. How much power did he devolve to his national commissioners? How much powers were devolved to the state? All what we are talking about is about operations. There's nothing stopping the INEC chairman in delegating responsibility, in regionalizing the productions of the material. Why would, I ask you this question, why would all materials for the Southwest, for example, be taken to Abuja? When Central Bank, in its own operation, has offices in all the states of the Federation, when INEC in itself has offices in the 36 states of the Federation, had presence in the 774 local government in Nigeria with electoral officer, paid electoral officer in 774 local government, resident electoral commissioner in 36 states of the Federation, including Abuja, and we are talking about that. We need to, in Nigeria, we always break it down. Breaking it down does not solve the problem if you don't deal with the issue of the oppression. It's about the oppression. Nigeria is a federation that operates under unitary system. We say we are a federal system of government, which is spoke about. There is no electoral body anywhere in the world that operates within the way INEC operates in a democracy. It's programmed to fail. So we must look at how INEC is composed and how they devolve power. Give responsibilities to the state electoral, the resident electoral commissioner of the states.
I insist that we shouldn't do it in Nigeria.
I'm not talking about state independent electoral commission. No, I'm talking about the
what
regs.
we do in Nigeria is that
INEC regs.
Without data, we decide what should change. I'm saying that, and the INEC chairman have said it, after this election, we want, even the president have alluded to it, we need to audit what went wrong. And I tell you, in a proper audit, we can see all of these things. I can tell you that from all those off-season elections that you are talking about, from Anambra up till Osun, improvement was gradual and steady, and that is a fact. We improved on enough, but you see why they are overwhelmed is that indeed they had all those off-season elections to practice, but those are states where you can easily mobilize everything.
But that should have been
on a national level.
That's why I said there is improvement. Now there was improvement in Osun's election where the election was inconclusive. How many inconclusive elections did we have in the off-cycle election? In actual sense, can we say 2019 general election is conclusive? Because the election was postponed in the first instance. And then we have a lot of inconclusive National Assembly elections that have been completed today. And I asked myself this question. The presidential election result was declared. The election was conducted on the same day. And then in 109 House of Assembly, National Senatorial seat, we couldn't declare the result. In 360 House of Rep result, we couldn't declare the result. And the election was conducted on the same day, the same time. There are some areas that we don't know the senator till date. There are some areas that we don't know the House of Rep, yet we know the president. Something is wrong somewhere.
But is that really